Hello, everybody. Welcome again to the Doomer Optimism podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Seneca Scott. And before I allow him to introduce myself, I just want to, if it's okay with you, Seneca, I want to read your pinned tweet because I just love it so much. And I think it'll help frame this conversation a little bit. And I think it's very in line with our ethos of Doomer Optimism. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it. So it says, America needs to hit the reset button on our politics. Start over. Get to know your neighbors and grow some food and raise some community livestock with them. You can do it anywhere in America. Build parallel systems that will remain resilient as our current ones collapse. So I want to really dig into that quote, and I think that'll kind of frame our whole discussion. But first, I just want to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself, a little bit about your background, and some kind of formative experiences, and what's led to your activism for founding the Neighbors Together Oakland and all the work that you're doing. So just maybe a little bit of background.
Oh, that's a lot of background. I'll streamline it so people don't get bored or not. So my name is Seneca Scott. I call myself Oakland's neighbor, and I'm a post-partisan solutionary, which is the title, meaning no more up-down, no more left-right politics. We're going up-down. Either you have integrity or you don't, right? And I think that's a better barometer, a simple barometer for us as we chart our way forward through these accelerated times that we're already in. I don't like to say beginning. I've been saying beginning since 2018. We're in it.
Yeah.
We're in the middle or wherever in it. We're in the thick of it, and it's going to get thicker. So I used to be a union organizer. Today's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I start from the very beginning, and I do the whole life story in 5 minutes. Boom, let's do it. So I was conceived in Tehran, Iran in 1979 during the harvest. And as you know, 79, well, I was conceived in 78, sorry. Mm-hmm. And as you know, the Arab Spring, or if you didn't know, look it up. Mm-hmm. My parents had to escape. They put their whole life over there, escape back to America. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio on this beautiful day today, which I share with Clint Eastwood, who's total badass. And I grew up in Cleveland, working class neighborhood. My family, my grandfather's niece is Seneca Scott King, making her my first cousin once removed. And they often came to my grandfather's home in Cleveland. That's where they stayed at when Martin and the family would come to Ohio. And I don't know if many people know this, but Martin married up, and Coretta had 2 degrees as a Black woman in the 50s. And our family owned a whole lot of land and stuff. So we always had land. Land is important to fundamental wealth creation and hedging and holding in America. So I became a union organizer after I went to Cornell University, and I did that in California, mostly California up until 2014. I've worked for 16 different labor unions.
Wow.
A lot of stories there. And I wouldn't say I failed upward because I was enormously successful. I've actually, if you go through the numbers of campaigns I led, I'm one of the most successful union organizers in the United States of America. And I came to Oakland as the East Bay director of SEIU 1021 in 2012, where we immediately went to work striking big strike for public transit, which created a national discourse of whether public transit workers should be allowed to have the right to organize. We won that strike because it was over public safety, and 2 strike breakers and scabs got killed on the train track, basically because what we were striking over. So we won. We struck the Port of Oakland under my leadership. We struck the city of Oakland. We struck the city of Hayward, California. And we were very aggressive at the bargaining table in 2012 and 2013 because we were coming back from 2008 recession. And we weren't going to take any more concessions at the bargaining table, so we fought. I retired from unions unknowingly. I thought I was going on a sabbatical in 2014, but it wasn't a sabbatical, and I was burnt out. I was fried, right? Like it was not a good time. And I had lost the light of why I did the work. And the reason was I found myself in contention with the rank and file over their desperate pleas that we focus on their working conditions and wages. And we're telling them that the way to do that is to focus on social justice issues. So unions move from direct worker advocacy to the organizing model to the social justice model, all during my time in labor at solutions to the private sector labor dying, which is now only 7% of the country and 93% are in public sector, which brings me to the next part of this story. So I left to start Bottoms Up Community Garden. Well, I didn't leave and do that, but I came to Oakland, and right down the street with this community garden. And I didn't plan it that way, but I was going to start cooking. So I'm like, oh, I'm cooking. I'm going to start my own food truck and all of that. You know, what a great place. So I went there, and we ended up doing a pop-up in there, and that became a major festival, Oakhella, and I was popping. I did it. I have a company. I have the food. I've been in cannabis my whole adult life until recently, where I had to retire for politics because gray market cannabis isn't kosher when you're fundraising. It's not fair to people giving you money that you're taking those kinds of risks. So if I was going to approach it in good faith, I had to retire after a long career as a cannabis broker and grower, mostly broker. So I was doing my thing, bro. We got paper, we got money, we got goats, we got weed. What else? We got women. What else? What do you need? We got wine? What do you need? What do you need? 2020 hit. And the uprisings and the shift, and in our neighborhood disintegrated. They were already on a downward trajectory. Yeah. And I'll get to this part after the introduction is almost over. I have to come right at 5 minutes. And but a shift happened around 2018, but really in 2020, I got political out of self-defense. And that led to all of the warm fuzzies that I built with this social, economic, and this demographic. Being younger, setting in flames, because it was mostly woke. Replaced it with a new, I'm 44 today, I can go either way, right? Replaced it with a new demographic of people who own assets, people who are older and elderly, who are feeling incredibly threatened and uncomfortable about where they see things going, especially after the older and more defenseless, especially ones who are in fixed incomes facing mounting inflations and food costs. So now I'm like popular there and not so popular here. I mean, we're getting it back in the young demographic, but that's what we're doing. We're writing, we're spreading our post-partisan gospel that neighbors need to walk outside and look to the left, look to the right, and that's who they need to focus on the most, because that's who's going to matter the most. If you have any situations like an earthquake, I always start with an earthquake. So out of the introduction or into the meat of the stuff, I start with earthquake in California because it's earthquake land. Yeah. Anything you can do to prepare for an earthquake, you could be doing to prepare for an economic collapse, or any other type of temporary society collapse of varying levels of acuity and intensity. And so rather than alienate people by seeming like the tinfoil hat guy talking about the world's going to end and being doomerish, you should talk about earthquake, food security, and all of that stuff we can get into. So we started our movement, Neighbors Together Oakland, to accentuate the fact that we have a need for neighborship and that we need to go back to local politics and forget about, we can't control all the noise up top until you rebuild the base and the foundation, or as we call it, our roots, because we're farmers. You got to plant your roots and let them grow, and you got to stay in one place to do that. You can't be moving around all the time, and you're never going to put roots down to have a truly sustainable grassroots movement where people feel like they can take charge of their own lives and their own communities. Today, whatever we're facing. So. Okay, great. Well, that's a lot to work with there.
first off, I guess you mentioned, you emphasize kind of post-partisan, not left, right, but up and down, whether you have integrity or not. Did you evolve that stance? Were you previously more partisan, and you saw kind of the problems with strictly partisanship, and like what led you to emphasize post-partisanship coupled with kind of this local resilience?
Great question. It wasn't a rapid evolution, but it was also something that was sort of building. Like when I was the union boss of Oakland, I live in Silver Lake, LA. So I make decisions politically for Oakland, and I don't even live here. And now, as a person who lives here, I see just how wrong that was, right? Because I thought, well, we're fighting for workers, and I'm doing the right thing, and Democrats good and Republicans bad, and that's not based on just kinesthetic feelings. As a union person, all the things that we fought for that would make it easier to organize, Republicans are blocking.
Yeah.
So, there's problems there. I think now they're starting to realize that they need to be pro-labor, especially with people like Josh Hawley and others who have taken a stronger labor stance on issues like the railroad strike and State even Bernie Sanders and ALC, which was very interesting. But I saw the coalescing of the uniparty. And these people were the elite who they served one master. I gotta tell the real story, bro. I gotta tell the story.
Please do.
The story here. So 2018, I went to bed at normal time, like I normally do. And I usually sleep like 8 hours, 8 hours, and get up, like go to bed at 10, get up at like 6, go to bed at 11, get up at 7, something like that. Well, not that day. I went to bed at maybe 10 and I woke up at 8 p.m. the next day.
Okay.
And I had ruined my mattress. I went to bed. And I woke up cold in my pee in a fetal position. And now I'll go back and tell you how I got there. So in that time, I had a dream that lasted a week. But it wasn't a fucking dream. That was some divine intervention. Because I experienced a grid down scenario, right? Where with the level of accuracy that is uncanny, considering I had no idea what that would have meant. This was April 2018. And I saw all my loved ones die. And at the end of that week, I was in a cave in Yosemite, shivering and cold. And that's where I woke up. And I was like, yo, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
Did the apocalypse just happen?
Yeah.
Because that's what happened. It's a fucking Walking Dead shit, bro. Straight up, everything you think, marauders, the whole get down. And I had no firearms, I had no food, I had no water, I had no Berkeley filter, I had no nothing, man, except a bunch of weed. And we were fucked. We were so fucked. And so I started, trying to find out more. That December, the Department of Homeland Security released a congressional report about a grid down scenario will kill 90% of Americans in the first year. And they started dropping that kind of EMP stuff and all of that. Like, they're warning Americans, right? And they tell people you should have 6 months worth of provision. So people who are listening and watching, look it up. Look it up from 2018 December. So here's what all this led to. The financial market. All the research led to me really learning how money works. Finding people like Dr. Chris Martinson, who now is a personal friend of mine, which is mind bonkers to me. I've watched this guy and followed for years, and now like he's the homie, right? But we're finding each other, the post-partisan. And I don't go left, right, I go up, down. That's his slogan. I got that from him. I mean, I felt that way, but that's his direct quote. So I'm looking at the financial markets and I'm like, yo, hold on, you telling me we're fucked? Oh my God, we put in how much money? Oh, we're done. This is not going to work out. We're gonna have an adjustment period, which is going to be catastrophic for the middle class and even the upper class as we know it.
Mm.
If you look at the wealth gap between the 1% and the 0.0001%, which is really only one of 100,000 people, not a lot, right?
Yeah.
And the richest few people in any city.
Mm.
That gap is way bigger than what you think the millionaire on the block actually do. He's poor like you in this next term,
Mm.
when it all shakes out. Unfortunately, because they're coming after any type of upward mobility, and it's just going to be a whole new game. So that's when I realized, oh, they're all in on it. They're all in on it. No one wants to stop the money printers. No one wants to stop the corruption. No one's going to stand up for the people. And
Yeah.
all these people are bought and sold. And it's time for a revolution that's not, team red or blue, but we're using green now, but that's another story.
Mm.
But like just the neighbors and start from there. I think it does have potential to grow into something bigger, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Do it where you're at, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Okay. So it's kind of like not so much for you like left, right, but like there's the elite who are both the uniparty. They're both left and right, are both part of kind of the moneyed elite that our politics have been captured by, financial interests. Which yeah, I basically agree with that. And it seems like what you're describing of like, okay, reaching out to your neighbors, kind of like, more of the people themselves. One framing that I really like, or that I'm really trying to encourage on this podcast and Doomer Optimism is this idea of cosmo-localism, which is basically this idea that wherever you are, just like in your original quote, you need to start organizing. You need to get organized. You need to get your basics in order: your food, your water, energy, community, spirituality. Whatever that means for you. Start getting that in order and build up your community in real life. And you also need to be networking. We still have the internet. We don't know how long the internet, and all that will last. We still have it, right? We need to be connecting with other communities who are doing the same thing, right? In solidarity and supporting each other.
Post haste.
Yeah. And so that's exactly basically kind of my project and intention. So that's really cool to hear.
It's working.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've had 140 some episodes now that we've recorded from people all over the country and even all over the world. And a lot of people are thinking along similar lines. Now, people have a different sense of what the quote unquote doom is, right? Some people think, there's going to be another financial collapse. Some people are worried about climate change and ecological crisis. Some people are worried about energy shocks, new viruses, AI, whatever it is, whatever it happens to be that you're doing.
What about all of them? Is there a category for all of them?
Well, some people use the term meta crisis, that we've gone to the point where
that's me.
Yeah, where we've gone to the point where there's so many crises and we've lost the ability to address crises at the large scale. So then what do you do? Right. And what we've kind of determined is, well, you start focusing on the tangible things locally and you connect horizontally, right? Broad scale, not large scale. So that's basically, our whole idea there. Yeah, I want to get into, so I was looking at your website, Neighbors Together Oakland, and you have the 4 pillars. And I want to go through each of these individually and give each of them their due, because I think each of these are really important.
Thank you. You're doing your research. I'm looking for my eyes drop, but I don't know whether it's fine. But yes.
Cool. Well, so let's start with community safety. And I've seen you posting a lot on this lately. And so let's talk about, what does community safety mean to you? Why has it, disintegrated in many places? And what can we do about promoting community safety?
Well, first, it's because on the hierarchy of needs, which is this 4 pillars are based on.
Yeah.
And then the retrofitting that to what it looks like in an urban environment. Mm-hmm. Because this plan is meant for cities to address our current problem and moral and social fabric of our communities that are decaying right now. Yeah. Is you got to be safe. You can't do anything if you're not safe. So you have to address that first. And what that means to me is that people have agency to walk, be outside in nature. Our possessions, our assets are extremely important, especially fundamental assets like transportation or energy, or your food, or where you grow your food, and all of those are under assault right now. And if you're looking at people in poverty, it takes a person an average of 3 years of good luck to escape poverty if you even are gainfully employed, because of our current financial constraints. And bad luck is not bad luck if it's theft, right? Like, people call it that, but it's not bad luck. You're not keeping people safe, and our property isn't safe. So, and children aren't safe. And you're messed up when your average, like right now, we have an assault of youth crime. I've been saying this for a minute. You got child soldiers now. You guys aren't getting it. You got to go back and watch City of God, that movie.
Yeah,
that used to, like, oh my God, Brazil is crazy. No, that's us now. Right? You got kids out there, machine gun someone and laugh about it and go back home, and make a YouTube rap song about it and pee on their grave, and like, it's wild out here, bro. Right? And like, these are children. What does that mean? That's us. We lost them. You can't blame them dang old kids.
Yeah.
You have to address the children for what they are, because you can't let them hurt you. So we got a visitor. I thought that was to me. I was about to look
speaking of children, yeah.
Hey, see?
Hey, yeah, that's my older kiddo. He came in right on time. Speaking of children.
Yeah, he heard me.
All right, he can hang out, but you gotta just don't be climbing on me, all right? All right.
It's beautiful. So yeah, man. What's your son's name?
Kaleo.
What's up, man? You're climbing. He's climbing.
This is Seneca.
Hi.
Yeah, we're recording a podcast.
Podcast?
Yep.
Podcast. So we got to keep people safe, and right now, what does that mean? That means you got to stop. People talk about root causes, and let me just say, when you hear politicians say root cause, that basically means they ain't gonna do shit about it.
Yeah.
Because people facing the same systemic issues in adjacent cities with mirrored population demographics from race, class, and all of that, and have less problems because they have more investments in law enforcement and public safety, right? And they have a better system for that. So right now, we've lost rule of law in Oakland. It's a really bad time.
Yeah.
And, these public safety meetings you're seeing online, like the one Leighton covered last night, where people are like, oh, well, all women were being targeted and we're getting like mugged violently. Not like just like give it up, like they're just hitting them before they even like asking for stuff now at this point. And it's getting like clockwork orangey out here, you feel me? And we can't have that. You can't have the ultra violence all around your streets, man. Like, you can't have that stuff.
Right. And what is, like, I mean, what is your kind of diagnosis of like why it's gotten worse? Is it is it the politics?
It's intentional.
Is it just poverty? It's intentional. Yeah.
It's both. When they're using poverty, that higher poverty leads to more violence.
Yeah.
So you could set your clock to that, right?
Yeah.
So why you're creating conditions that encourage the impoverishment of and stops the economic mobility of your working class. Yeah. So when you talk about policy like eviction moratorium, let's take that one. Oakland and Alameda County kept its eviction moratoriums going for over a 4-year longer than when the state ended even their draconian, far too long eviction moratorium.
Yeah.
And none of these eviction moratoriums were constitutional. I don't care if they were for one day, because if you don't provide the financial assistance to the housing provider or the landlord, then you're requiring them to pay someone else's bills and provide private welfare. So when you do that to small housing providers and you're taking tens of thousands from them and you're not requiring any proof, it's just completely illegal and unconstitutional. You're eroding the wealth from these people. So people are afraid to put their market units on the market now because that means they're not getting the money for it. so they're losing money. People are owed a lot of money, so they lost money there. People are being foreclosed, they're losing their property. So you're losing the ability for people to acquire property. That's a systemic onslaught. And if you trace the money to the nonprofit, the nonprofits who are pushing, who have the sock puppet politicians who are drafting these cookie cutter policies that they give to the people they control, that they get elected, they're backed by mega billionaires who have obvious linear interests, like Tom Steyer, who has a plan to retrofit, 1 out of 4 single family homes in America with solar. Why is this guy backing so many nonprofits that are creating these just cause eviction? You can't evict someone now because they don't pay you. Like all of a sudden, you can just live somewhere for free at the expense of the housing provider, and you're treating them like they're some mega landlord. And that doesn't even fundamentally, it doesn't matter. It's a business. You can't do that. You have to either eminent domain it. You got to pay the bill, send a check to the property owner, and do whatever you got to do. You can't make them pay for it at any level. So the fact that we've allowed this at all and it wasn't a revolution, we've already fucked ourselves. Yeah. We've already allowed them to fundamentally cross a line that there should have been violence for that. Yeah. To allow your property to be taken by the government, there should have been violence for that. Those elected officials are mocking us right now. It's just fucking bullshit. Yeah. So would you say that, I mean, this kind of gave the excuse for, because usually, you think that, the public sector in general, is partially responsible for making sure people are housed. And I want to get to accessible housing next, because I think that's a big part of this picture here. And because don't skip the food. Yeah, no, I want to get to the food, but food systems is my focus. So I'm gonna I want to save the best, well, at least the most pertinent in my, salient for me last. So we'll get to the food for sure. But do you think did that correspond with kind of a decrease in kind of public funds available for basically housing for people? That now it was on the private kind of, homeowners that they had to basically provide this free housing instead of, basically the public, the government? Well, this is complicated because it's a slippery slope, the government's role in providing housing. Yeah, yeah. So let's take the slogan, housing is a human right. Yeah. Which I think is incredibly manipulative. Mm. If you unpack it, let's say we're all in the woods. There are no tools. Well, let's give a bonus. Every tool you need to make a house is there. But there's no house. Is God gonna make it for you? People have to put labor in to build that structure. Yeah. Do you own those people's labor? Are they slaves? Mm. So housing has always been a challenge, shelter for people. And usually it's been something that we've had to do collectively, like farm building, or we would work as a community because we knew how much it took. Yeah. So the essence of building housing, usually, especially with Natives and First Nation people, was definitely a community endeavor. Mm-hmm. And so that means to me, holistically, there always is a fundamental role of the community to make sure that we're housed. Yeah. And the community, by proxy, is the government. Yeah. And when you make housing a for-profit endeavor, there is a place where that can also go wrong. Mm. So, but here's the other part. People have the right to own their own property. And then the way we have our economic system right now, not the way we wish it to be, but the way our global economic system is set up right now, the acquisition of property and assets and land continues to be the easiest way for anybody to put their money into, who's working hard and being frugal and having delayed gratification to build generational wealth. That still remains true in America, even today's fixed game. Even today, people just have lost the concept of what delayed gratification even means anymore. Or what hard work means or saving means. So, and that's not saying that the rent ain't too damn high. It's very much so. Yeah. And the cost of a single family home to scale of the average income is astronomical compared to where it was and what should be, which is right size, in my opinion,
Yeah.
where people in maybe the 70s were buying a home. So accessible housing, to me, right now, to solve our solution, means you got to triage. It's meant to address our unhoused crisis, the homeless crisis.
Yeah.
We have drug and homeless tourism accounting for, I think we have like 12,000 unhoused in Oakland.
Yeah.
If that number was 4,000 in 2018, the additional 8,000, over 80% of them are not from here. So they're drained on resources. They've never put in any resources. They're not owed anything from taxpayers. They're coming here to take advantage of our lax laws around drug tourism. And so that we can't have that. It's not infinite resources. So you've got to stop that type of, you can't allow that. And you have to allow people to access. We say accessible housing and Neighbors Together because affordability has been weaponized and politicized. And people who have high acuity drug addiction and mental illness are not going to be able to afford anything anytime soon. They need to access shelter that's meaningful until they can get stable enough that housing is an option that they can access safely. And there's a difference between the two. Housing is something you have autonomously, and shelter is something someone else is providing, that you have a strict set of rules that you have to adhere to stay there.
Yeah.
And that is what we need to do right now in terms of, we have this available. That's all that we have is all of that. But what do we have? Harm reduction model that tells people, oh, it's okay, it's a lifestyle choice. Harm reduction has really seeped into, it's supporting lifestyle choices. So you're telling me taxpayer dollars are supporting lifestyle choices for people to be drug addicts or insane, like meth zombies, or die of ISO in the streets because it takes like 5 different things to get it back now and not just one. Like, this is insane, right? So you got to stop that. You also need to build like real shelter that's meaningful right now. But it's not that hard, man. You put concrete there. It's not that hard. You just don't want to make people follow the rules. And you want to call it consecration. Put it in nature. Put it out in the country where the land is cheaper, right? It's all types of stuff we could do if we cared, but we've monetized people being on the street. So I think that our housing crisis is about to get crazy as people foreclose again, and you have a great unwash happening. But why? When this is where, and I want your perspective on this. Do you live rural or are you in a city?
I'm pretty rural. I'm about like 10 minutes away from a small university town, but yeah, we have a kind of like a small holding out in the country.
And is the cost of rent there affordable for people who make minimum wage?
Not really, because we have a lot of second homeowners. Like, we have a lot of like second, third, fourth homeowners from, say, Florida. So I'm in West North Carolina. Plus it's a university town, so you kind of have the upscale, upper middle class pressure, and then you have a lot of just empty nesters basically. It's not very affordable. Housing is becoming a bigger and bigger issue around here as well.
Where are you at? Asheville or something?
I'm near Boone.
Oh my goodness, I was looking at houses
upstate
there years ago. What place? What city?
So I'm near Boone. I'm about 10 miles west of Boone. Yeah.
It's a really nice area. Really nice.
Yeah, very nice. But yeah, the housing is pretty crazy. Like, even people who are like associated with the university, like come new faculty and stuff, they have trouble affording housing now, right?
So that's wrong. That's crazy. That's crazy, right? So what does that mean? How do you fix that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I mean,
higher wages.
I think there's two things that I think are the core of it. One is that App State, the university, keeps wanting to expand, and there's just no room to build housing because the physical geography means there's just not many places to build, and not just completely mess up, the watershed basically, and you run into just physical.
What about vertical, like the YIMBY said?
There is, I think that's the new thing. Like, we are getting more vertical kind of apartments and stuff. But the second thing is, I think that personally, I think that there should be some kind of law that on like second or third home ownership. Like, if you want to buy a house around here, like this has to be your permanent residence.
So no more investments.
Yeah, I think investment properties in general, are not good for poor people in the working class. Pretty much, unless that's your permanent residence and you're actually putting, it's an active kind of place. I think those two things, and building vertically, that could help as well. But it's a tough.
So how do you stop the big corporations from buying all the houses if
Well,
they don't have those same constraints?
Right. That hasn't been as much of an issue here, as far as I know. It's mostly second and third homeowners, from like Charleston or Florida or something. And I just think that comes down to, that comes down to policy of, what is allowable, or there being some kind of steep tax for, second and third home ownership.
So what those people would do is create an LLC and buy them that way.
What's that?
They just make an LLC and buy them that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I'm not a policy expert in housing, so I actually don't know.
I've consulted to help on the landlord side.
Yeah.
Because the eviction moratorium.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, these people are very savvy. They're gonna get their money. You're gonna meet the court. You got to tackle a policy from all in.
Yeah.
Right, which means that. Well, here's what that also means. You've taken off the way that most people got their wealth in America got it because they bought second and third homes.
Mm.
So the reason people do that is so that they can keep up and retire and not be destitute.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're under pressure to keep up financially with wealth creation because although they can't assure their own children's education and health, they're worried about their own healthcare costs. You have one bad move and now I'm in a trailer because I've got cancer and I don't have the healthcare costs to cover it. So that's why I asked you. This is one of the things where we need to have a lot of very nuanced conversation.
Yeah.
About what does the parallel system mean for housing? Because the system we are in right now is obviously sick.
Yeah.
But also acknowledge the fact that we're in this system right now, and if you allow other people who won that game to keep those winning and stop other people from playing it, you stop people's agency, and other people get to have an advantage, and their lineage get to have an advantage.
Yeah.
Right, and then they get a generational advantage, which ends up with some kind of neo-feudalism stuff, like Kotkin wrote about. So,
let me ask you this, because I'm really not an expert in this topic, but what do you think about like the community land trust model?
I like it.
Trying to decommodify housing in general.
I think it should all be going on at the same time.
Yeah.
So right now, the biggest issue is on money printers, man. These people are crazy.
Yeah.
They're inflating everything. So nothing's in reach anymore. We're all out each other's throat. And we're not going to the source. The source of these evil fucking assholes who get to create money on the thing and say, here you go, Jason, here's $3 billion today. Yeah. Oh, your company failed again? Oops, here's another $4 billion. Pay yourself whatever you want. And that sounds crazy, but that's the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
So all the money that we created, we could have all had a Lamborghini and free college and everything. They've created and printed enough money in the last few years to give every one of us 300 million Americans fucking a luxurious lifestyle, and we could all been rich. Instead, they all fuck it off and did a bunch of crazy shit. So now we're stuck because we can't print it again. So I think we're just gonna have to go through it, man. I think that people need to brace for the storm. There's no stopping it at this point. We're gonna see the loss of our world reserve currency, and then you're gonna realize what the advantage we had this whole time.
Right.
Yeah, it's gone. The just-in-time delivery system, that shit's fucking gone.
Yeah.
Unless you create, not the global one, it's gone. It's gonna be reshifted everything's gonna change. It's changing right now, and that's why I want to keep it simple. I want to get control as much as we can of our own food production.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that. Let's get into the localized agricultural systems. So obviously that's a more difficult proposition in a dense urban area. So what, like, do you want to talk about kind of the unique challenges and also opportunities of kind of urban localized agriculture?
Well, Oakland's different because we have perfect weather. So we actually
That's nice.
we're
All
good
year
over
round.
here.
That helps
Yeah,
out.
all year round.
Yeah.
But if you're in a densely populated area right now, chances are your downtown may be empty of commercial real estate due to the way work's changed, especially with AI picking up. We're not going to need all these office buildings. Now,
Yeah.
people talk about changing office buildings to housing, but they don't retrofit well because of the way the layout is. But you
Yeah.
know what they do retrofit very well too? Vertical farming.
Mm.
So vertical farming used to be inaccessible for two reasons: cost of commercial real estate
Yeah.
and the cost of the LEDs.
Yeah.
In 2019, the LEDs plummeted. They're cheap now.
Mm.
And now the commercial real estate cheap. You can
Yeah.
buy them. You could be pumping out, and it's water efficient. You don't have to truck it all over the place. There's a lot of benefits to indoor vertical farming
Yeah.
as a solution to nutritional density problems. But you can't produce staple grains that way. But all the other stuff is just shipping around. That's all delicate, and that you're refrigerating and all of that. Like, you don't have to use the energy that way. You can use it much more efficiently in vertical farming.
So let me ask you, because I recently read an article. They were talking about how there was a big kind of bubble and bust in the vertical farming sphere. One, because the energy costs were higher than expected, just the lights, because you have to, you're not using natural sunlight, right? And so you have to do it through, electricity.
LEDs. Yep.
LEDs. But where is that electricity going to come from? Comes from solar panels. You're going to need a lot of panels for that.
Oh,
and then what you can grow, mostly what people grow is like lettuce and tomatoes, right? Like, there's not, in terms of actual, as you said, staples, or meat or dairy, like there's still some, from my understanding going into this, was that there's still some kind of significant challenges with energy and the types of food you can grow. And then I guess the other thing would be, and I'm always interested in this, is that what is the ownership model, right? Is it just going to be another large corp that comes in, monopolizes the food system, makes everyone dependent on them, or is it more like cooperatively owned or something like that?
it should be owned by the local city or municipality,
Yeah.
ideally, because that's the way that they already have to make an investment in food security through SNAP and WIC. So if you're already making that investment, well, let's take those investments and use them smarter. And to your point, the limitations on what you can grow, it was a lot of the different numbers did not work for a lot of reasons, but the cost have plummeted for those. Not the energy cost itself, but that's a whole nother geopolitical issue. And why are we not using nuclear?
Yeah.
Which we could. There's nothing safe, but you can't produce an energy for billions and billions of people in our current modern lifestyle when you have people in places that we need AC and heat.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
every year.
We talk a lot about energy stuff, and I agree with you that, if we're going to shift away from fossil fuels, which, it's going to eventually run out anyway, but there's climate and all of that. If we just wanted to switch to, like, wind and solar, it's just the numbers don't add up, right? The minerals that we need for that.
It's a joke. It's a joke.
And most of our economy is not run by electricity; it's run by liquid fuels, and that's a whole other issue. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the other thing I worry about is, nuclear is interesting. Like, there's a lot of different opinions about nuclear, even in the DO space, but,
it's all we got right now.
Right. To think that we're going to do urban farming with solar panels.
No.
Doesn't add up.
We gotta go. We don't go nuclear in the next 10 years. We're kind of fucking ourselves. We're gonna have mass extinction event due to lack of energy cost. It's just not adding up. The lack of arable land available to feed a growing population, which is another issue. We need land the size of Brazil from studies I've read by 2040 by our current population growth, unless we have those extinction events that our elites seem to be really, really intent on having. We're gonna have issues there, right? Like, we don't have enough food for everyone soon. We're gonna, especially our current food production models like salt fertilizer, petroleum-based fertilizers. We're seeing that those aren't sustainable,
right?
And they lead to dead soil, And if like,
It's
so
oil
there's a
that's
lot.
broken.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it don't work. It don't work.
Yeah.
So, but start finding pots.
Hmm.
So if you have vertical farms, you can use saw you want. Who cares? You're
Yeah.
not poisoning the ground. It's not bad. You can flush it out and have a perfectly healthy product. People are too much purists sometimes to me, right? Like,
You gotta be pragmatic sometimes.
yeah, it's like, yeah, who cares? But petroleum based is just like a nasty deal.
Yeah.
We need to get out of that energy and spin it.
Mm.
So we have enough time right now to try to responsible phase out over 50, 60, 100 years that would make total sense and empower us if we have responsible, intelligent leaders. The problem is everyone's is weaponizing energy and they're making money off of it, and it's control and power.
Yeah. Well,
So
let's so one area of focus that you emphasize a lot is the neighborhood, right? And neighbors pulling together. And so, of course, it would always be much, much better if we had good leadership. But in lieu of that, in the meantime, and this is about kind of the building the parallel systems that you talk about, what you want to talk about some of the initiatives that you're involved with the community gardens. I assume the like raised bed gardens, community livestock. I know you raise goats. Do you want to talk about
we got the goats.
you guys are doing with that?
Right now it's just an incubator to show people what they should be doing.
Yeah.
Because if you add up all the goats and land, it may be enough for 12 of us. We got 6 goats, and one's a boy, so 5 will be milking because they're pregnant soon. They will have some babies. We've got like maybe 60 chickens, so you're getting like,
nice.
We'll get like 50 eggs a day or so plus at the height. That don't add up for a big size community.
Yeah.
But we do go through those calories, and a lot of people get to taste it and see how different their body feels.
Yeah.
When they even consume a small amount of things that are so premium and local, and then they will hopefully be inspired to start to do it themselves, and many have. So one of the things we do is a weekly food drive. We're going to expand it to bi-weekly, but we get a lot of that food from the food bank.
Yeah.
And then we supplement it with stuff that we grow, and then try to show people how to use a small garden. Like if you got your own peppers, tomatoes, and brassicas, and the carrots and all these things that are expensive, even onions you can grow. They're expensive at the store now. You're talking about $1 an onion and stuff. Like
Yeah.
You could grow those things in your herbs and not have to buy them from a store. Then you can get bulk staple grains, and then you can have community livestock you butcher, and you could actually have a really high quality diet for fractions of the cost if your community did it together. So we haven't done that yet. We haven't put it off, but that's what we're working toward and trying to get more people to buy in. Like we could do this with 50 of us. Like we could all radically reduce our footprint, our food costs, all of the stuff. But we could do it legally with the laws on the books in our current city.
Okay, so I mean, I know some places around the country, the laws, especially in urban areas, are very restrictive. Like if you want to get chickens in some places, you just can't do it, or you live in a homeowner association and they don't want anything to do with chickens or vegetables or anything. But you're saying in Oakland, the laws are pretty amenable to, like, if a neighborhood comes together and says, hey, we want to produce a significant amount of our own food. These are the spaces that we have, these are public spaces or private spaces or whatever. Let's put our resources together and do it. Is it pretty easy to do that, or are there still some really restrictive kind of laws?
No restrictions in laws. You can even have pigs and horses there.
Okay.
People have horses.
Nice.
People have pigs.
It's not like that everywhere. Yeah.
No, Oakland's very, very, very different. However, if it's not like that where you're at, then you need to be trying to change those local laws now.
Absolutely.
Right. That's a political advocacy that's more urgent than possibly anything else except public safety. Right. Through the hierarchy. So after the public safety, you need to worry about your food sovereignty and change those laws that don't allow you to produce your own food. Or if you can't change them quick enough, then fuck those laws.
Yeah. Then you got to become an agorist, and you got to start doing things, kind of on the sly a little bit.
Well, or you could even do it more. Here's another way to take it. How do people play civil disobedience when it's the woke shit? How do you play civil disobedience? We got elected officials saying it's okay to say riot and burn down cities. That's just what democracy looks like sometimes. Okay, cool. Here's what democracy looks like to us. Fuck whatever laws you have and don't allow us to make our own
Right.
food. We're just going to do that shit.
So you're saying the civil disobedience is not burning stuff down, but it's actually we're going to build our own shit to take care of ourselves, and
Yeah,
we don't care what you think about that, and
yeah, and
we're
don't
going to
send no
fight back if
cops
you
over.
do
We're
something.
going to fight back if you fuck with our shit,
Yeah,
and we're gonna be. It's going to be a movement,
yeah,
and they will show if people will see. So this is the thing, right? Have faith in your neighbor.
yeah,
We're not stupid. We know when if the police are trying to stop you from making your own food, everyone knows that's wrong.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's something that's like deep
everyone
down.
knows that's
That's so
wrong.
fundamental to being a human
It's like,
that
hold
we've
on,
lost. Yeah,
what? But here's the scary part,
yeah.
and here's why I think we don't have much time. Here's the doomerish part.
Okay.
The doomerish part is this: they know that people won't do that.
Hmm.
That's why. Why would the emotion tyrant? Why would people who are displaying obvious signs of totalitarianism and fascism callously disregard law enforcement and defund them? You got to think. You got to think. You need those people if you're a realtor. Where are you going to get the soldiers from? Drones, motherfucker. They don't need them anymore. They know by the time it's time for that phase, it's all AI and drones are in the air with facial recognition. You know what Russia's doing right now? Russia has $50,000 drones.
Yeah.
That fly around with AI software looking for shapes and outlines of our ordinance and UN ordinance. And when it spots something it thinks it likes, it crashes into it and blows it up. A $50,000 drone taking a $100 million HIMARS. Like, this is different times.
Yeah.
I can put a bunch of robots and fucking self-driving cars and all types of shit and lock this shit down with facial recognition and all that. I can lock you down like that, right? With current available technology, if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Right? I don't need a fucking cop.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this.
That's the scary part about it, right? So if you really want to be free, you need to be really understanding like what's going on right here.
You need to know what time it is.
Stopping that. You need to know what time it is. Yeah.
So for the person and the neighborhood that gets the shit together and knows what time it is, what is the optimism? Like what is the pathway, as hard as it's going to be, what is the pathway that you see?
Well, it's the stuff. Take things like CRISPR-Cas9 or all this AI and all this technology. The technology doesn't have a soul.
Yeah.
So it could just as easily propel us to an egalitarian society as it will destroy us. But we're at that crossroad now. And the optimism is, how lucky are you to be able to be living in a time that only very select few living beings have got to live in through the multiple versions of ourselves who've arisen and went back into the ashes for whatever reason, be it natural or unnatural. Right? And you're here right now, and potentially, I don't want to be arrogant. People thought that they were before, but now I think we're safe to say what we're seeing. Like, all right, we're kind of in an interesting spot right now. We're going to see really accelerated things, and it's really exciting. And the optimism is that if we work together, that we can do that. There are more of us than people who don't want to see that. And my optimism personally is take Oakland, Neighbors. Every day I'm blown away by how smart these people are. But I know for sure that if I was the mayor of Oakland, it doesn't matter how many staff I'm short in the city or how bad my budget is. I could go to my neighbors and say, hey, I got 400 positions in the city, FTE. I need 1,200 people in these different jobs. So 3 people, volunteers, are going to make up an FTE. We're going to give you a stipend. But we need our neighbors to get our city back. And if you believe in Oakland, and you're an architect, an engineer, an accountant, public works, whatever, you got gas in the tank, we need your help right now. We don't have enough city staff or county and state support to do it. That's brass tack. So we can focus more stuff on whatever our priorities are. But we need to show it up with people who can do those jobs as volunteers in the city. We'll have a test, take this test. You pass the test, get in. Right? Here's your stipend, get to work. right? And if you can't meet your minimum qualifications for this many consecutive weeks, we'll have to drop you from the program.
Right. Right.
I just did that in what, 120 seconds or some shit, bro? Come on, man. We're smart people. We can come up with all kinds of ideas.
Yeah.
We just got to get. So the optimism is that we're really, like, we have a very educated, intelligent society right now. We have a lot of people who are well intentioned. We have a spiritual awakening going on where people are understanding that there's a need to be a better person. Some people may be misguided right now and fell for the woke trap. But in the words of the, I don't know if it was Jesus or the Bible, whatever, forgive them, for they know not what they do. They're not talking about the leaders, fuck those assholes. They're talking about the people who fell for it. Don't turn on the NPCs. Forgive them.
Yeah.
You got to forgive them in your heart and not carry that anger for them.
Let me ask you this. This is an interesting topic. When you talk about like the woke trap, like what, how do you define woke, and where did it go wrong? You know, because kind of, at least in theory, woke is.
Man, I don't have time for that one.
That's a big one. Okay.
It's a big one, but it started happening before you know it, but it cemented in 2020 when they pulled the trigger big time. That was like, oh, it's time right now. But it started as early as the woke trap is simple. You think the meeting is the work. It's a good way to put it.
Wait, say that again.
There was a guy yesterday who was a business owner, a friend of mine who owns a pizza shop in Oakland, very successful pizza chain. And he was like, here's the difference between the private sector and the public sector. In the private sector, the meeting's not the work. In the public sector, the meeting's the work. For woke people, the meeting's the work. The patting themselves on the back, the pervasive victimhood, leading with your victim status. That's what they all do. I was this and that, everything that's bad that happened to me. I'm a victim, so you should give me sympathy, and I should be demanded that I lead because it's owed to me because I've been victimized by you, and I have reparational destiny to lead you now. It don't work like that, right?
So let me see if I can summarize what you're saying. Tell me if you agree this is a good summary. So it's kind of like, you know, the intention is to lift up the oppressed, but it's all talk, and it's all just kind of like parsing out who is the most oppressed and what is nature of oppression, but it's not actually, you know, constructively coming together as, say, neighborhoods and actually, you know, getting your food systems in order and getting your neighborhood safety in order. It's not actually doing the thing that would lead to lifting up, you know, the oppressed. Tell me if that's a good or a bad summary.
That was a great way to say it. I couldn't say it better. The performative altruism and the luxury politics are suffocating, and they're obviously not connecting with but improved lives for the working class or anyone for that matter, right? So, but that means that you don't. But what you just gave is your version of what we should be doing. But there are other people who will be able to convincingly tell us right now about all of the systemic issues and we have to work about this or that, and they wouldn't even necessarily be wrong. But there's an old saying, and you can complete it, I'm sure, the road to hell is paved with
good intentions. Yeah.
Those are the woke. They're not self-aware that their policies have led our cities on a path to hell.
Yeah.
And they want to double, triple, quadruple, quintuple, sextuple, what's that for that? As many times you can go on failed policy. They'll never stop repeating and parroting this shit, no matter how bad things get around them. The hubris is insane at this point. And now it's got to the point where it's just disrespectful.
Yeah.
As a person of color, as a Black person, and I don't even do racialized politics. I'm a class politics guy. But if you're going to be in that paradigm and say, I have more victim points than you because I put on a dress as a white man and call myself a they, and since anti-trans is inherently white supremacy and whatever jargon they say, and now you're the white supremacist and I'm like, what the hell just happened? These people are cuckoo for brains now, right? Like, it's just like this need to be a victim.
Yeah.
And they've created that situation because people have no meaning to connect to anymore. So I feel bad for most people like that because you know that you're not a happy person if you're always talking about the you're a victim.
Mhm.
There's just no way,
Yeah.
right? It's a bitterness and it's a projection.
Yeah. So let me see what you think about this. So, I definitely see this dynamic. I also see kind of a reactionary dynamic, like an anti-woke reactionary dynamic that I think can also be pretty unhealthy and actually can lead into victimhood status as well. Like kind of like if you look on like dissident right wing Twitter, like it's the most victim dynamics, kind of like, oh, we're being oppressed by the wokes or whatever. It's really bad, right, as well. And to me, it seems like, and this is what I see you're doing, what I'm so interested in your work, is that the way forward through all of these traps, whether it's the woke, anti-woke, reactionary, or just not putting your actions where your mouth is to actually be constructive, right? It's to be calm and just to be like, okay, I'm not gonna be reactionary. I'm gonna actually build things, right? And I'm gonna work with you and whoever else, right? Whatever your status, race, sexual identity, whatever, and we're gonna take care of each other, right? And that is the constructive. To me, that's the constructive solution to all of the pitfalls, of this kind of culture war that we've gotten ourselves into. I'm curious what you think about that.
Beautifully stated.
Yeah.
And I would say that people need to make their actions match their ambitions.
Yeah.
To create the neighborhoods they want to see.
Yeah.
And direct action. And that doesn't mean posting on social media.
Yeah.
Or action, to your point. Like get outside and find a community third space. And the reason why I like agriculture not only do we need to eat that food, no matter how small of amount it is theoretically to our caloric needs, fundamentally, it does something different. It's a third space that we don't have anymore. We've eroded because people used to, on average, go to church.
Yeah.
The average guy was part of either a hunting club or something, bowling, whatever.
Yeah.
And the way one had to stomach, they had this stuff.
Mm.
And it wasn't just a bar. Right? There's nothing wrong with bars, but like it just can't be like drugs or coffee all the time, or it needs to be a different third space that's more meaningful.
But you're actually doing something together, and embodiment, right? Like, I think a big part of, a big driver of a lot of our problems is that people are so disembodied, right? A lot of people have office jobs, like they don't actually know how to use their body, they don't know how to build things, they don't know how to fix things, they don't know how to grow food, right? And so we're disconnected from the sources of our sustenance, right? The basis of our needs, and we take them for granted, right? And I think that creates a lot of mental illness, personally, of being so.
It has created a lot of mental illness.
And so, I mean, growing your own food, you're right. It's good to be able to provide some of your own food, but just the act of coming together, I like this term, the third space, and actually using your body with other people, joking around, enjoying yourself, doing something productive, seeing the fruits of your labor, literally. Like, to me, exactly.
Eating it.
Yes, eating it, ingesting the fruits of your labor, literally, that to me has to be the way forward. Because if you look at from a different perspective of, because I look at food systems and how it relates to energy and how unsustainable our kind of corporate industrial food system is, it's really scary, right? I think that's the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. And so it's a clear necessity that we need to do, but it'll also, I think, help, among other things, help solve many of our kind of problems that have kind of, enraptured us in this meta crisis. That's my view. Yeah. I mean, I might be biased because
what else do we have? What else can we control?
Yeah, that's right. I can put a seed in the soil. I can control that, right?
I can control that.
Yeah.
Right. Or then I work backwards to see what are my constraints to controlling that. And then I will know what is the most important things I tackle politically.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So I'm curious, like kind of this dynamic. So, I know that you ran for mayor in 2022, and you also talk about building parallel systems. How do you see this dynamic between, getting good leaders, good policymakers, building these parallel systems, and how they kind of reinforce each other?
First, we need to start getting our very local electeds from our neighbors.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, everyone who runs is a neighbor because they live here. But the concept is the accountability are to the people who are paying those taxes that support the city.
Mm-hmm.
So who is your tax base? The property owner, right? Your business owner. Or even if they're not directly contributing, people who actually live there. And let's take the people who need those services, like children and elders who rely on those city services to be in place, to be able to have meaningful lives because they don't have the agency as a neighbor by themselves, right? Yeah. So we need to get people who prioritize that first. Mm-hmm. That means not esoterically, not through a third party or special interest who claim that they have altruistic endeavors like public sector labor unions who dominate our politics now. Like, oh, well, we're a worker town, so we got working class people who represent working class needs. No, you got people who rubber stamp whatever union politics you want that's completely disconnected from the needs of neighbors, no matter how much we scream and cry to you that we don't like these stupid fucking policies, right? So we got to end that. We got to get people who are going to listen to, but that means they have to come from us. Yeah. So that means we have to organize our own bases that are equivalent to or greater than the voter bases that are actually factual voting. I call them paper tigers. No one else is fighting. Well, yeah. I'm not. No one is fighting the cabals. There's no other voice in the room. Mm-hmm. So it has to start smaller and local, but people want another voice in the room that they feel connected to because they know, but you have to compete, right? Mm-hmm. There's only one side right now. It's a uniparty. It's only one side. Even in your city, there's probably only one side. So if there's no neighbors standing up, so it's to me it's a new political concept that I would imagine. So and I got to leave after this. So here's the plan. Okay. 20 years, if we make it that long, that's too doomerish. Mm-hmm. For 20 years, not that long. I'll only be 64 in 20 years. So nothing. I hang out with guys in their 60s all the time. These guys are young, having a fucking blast, right? Mm-hmm. So 20 years. First decade, run for the most local offices in your area. Yeah. Form groups, build your own base, get those people like at your very school board, alderman, whatever, the lowest level. Yeah. Then get them reelected. Then go up one level, the county. Do that. I do that first one, that's 8 years. You got the county, that's 8 years. Once you're done with the county, that's 16 years in, you run for statewide position like governor. Now you got your state in 20 years. Yeah. If every state's doing that, you just build a new political party. Who cares what it's called at that point? You can call it the Neighbors and make it. I like the Neighbor Party because it keeps the local mindset. Yeah. No, man. I like the color green because the Green Party didn't use it. We're gonna take the color back. So is it the Green Neighbor Party or is it the Neighbor Green Party or? No, I just call it the Neighbor Party, but I like that. The Green Neighbor Party. With the green. I like the Green Neighbor Party. I like that. You can take it. Yeah, man. Fucking A. There you go. Well, hey, man. But I'm not thinking like that. I'm not trying to be an Andrew Yang. I'm not trying to be. Yeah. I'm trying to organize my neighbors so we can eat. Well, yeah. Keep it simple. I know you got to go in a bit here, but I just want to say a couple of things. One, you really inspire me. I really dig what you're doing. And I think your advice is great for anybody, wherever you happen to be, to start local, right? Get involved with local organizations, local, become a local elected official, school board, whatever. And two, I would add network with communities around the country and even around the world who are doing this as well. That's the Cosmo local part I would add. But I also want to throw out the invitation to you that, one thing we do on this podcast is that when we've interviewed somebody and we're like, okay, this person's okay, this person kind of meets they're legit, right? We put out the offer of like, if you want to use this platform to host your own interviews, we want to make that available to you. So I just want to throw that out there, and that's why we have. Oh, that's awesome! Yeah, we have it like over a dozen. I don't know how many, but at least over a dozen people who have hosted the podcast, and that's because we have this model that is kind of like a collective in a way. And so yeah, so I just want to throw that out. I would love to have Dr. Chris Martinson on the Doomer Optimist podcast. Let's do it. He's a good guy. He knows a lot of stuff. That guy knows He's smart.
Well,
I
yeah,
don't know if we know who he is, but
I think I've heard that name. I think I've heard that name, but I'll have
he did a
to.
lot of COVID stuff. But you should look him up. He's super based. He has a farm in Massachusetts, Honey Badger Farm.
Okay.
He's super like-hearted and like-minded,
Okay.
and he's just a really powerful. He's a good teacher,
Mhm.
and his breadth of like I just look him up online and look up a few things on his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
His analytical skills are second to none.
Can
There's a
you
reason that JFK Jr. is on his podcast, I think, this year.
can you send me a link? Can you send me a
Or
link
adaptations.
to stuff? Cool. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'll email you. I'll email your stuff.
Cool. Cool, man. Well, any last words? I know you got to go, but any last words before?
No, thank you for having me. And last words for now. Anyone listening, if I hope you were inspired. If you have any questions, go to my Twitter, Seneca Speaks 21, and just add me or whatever and shout me out. I'm pretty responsive, at least for now. There's always a point where you get too busy,
Yeah.
but I do my best to communicate to people. It means a lot to your point that we build community across the country and across the world. We go through what I believe is to be a very, very intense time. Everything I saw in that dream has been happening.
Yeah.
Right. And it was fortunate that it happened when it did. And good luck out there. If something does, if the balloon goes up, because it's a Doomer podcast for all you preppers. If the
Doomer
balloon goes
optimism.
up, Doomer optimist. Remember the most important thing is that we're here to survive and be good people and keep the light. There's a lot of darkness and mental illness. Go outside, get some sun, and like touch some earth. Right, like that's all I can say. And I do my best. I'm on a computer too much. I got to take my own advice and get out into my own garden, which is not planted yet for the season.
Yeah, I'm on the computer too much as well, but I do work outside and garden and have chickens and stuff. So I try and balance it out. Kind of a
good.
Yeah.
But while we got the internet, let's use it to
Yeah.
To the point. It's a good tool.
I think we have to use it because it's being used for many other things. Many things. Corporations, governments love the internet, using the internet for their own purposes, but we, as people, we need to use the internet for our purposes, right? And we need
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, we're falling behind.
Yeah. All right, cool, Seneca. Well, this has been great. Until next time, and we'll be in touch, and we'll talk about setting up, a podcast where you want to host. And I know you're going to the conference in Wyoming. We didn't get to that. I actually don't know much about it. That's more Ashley's thing, and James Pogue and those folks are organizing it. But yeah, that's going to be cool too. And maybe, perhaps you guys want to have at some point, we'll want to have a podcast talking about what you want to do with that conference. I think that would be interesting.
It was all the localized agriculture system part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And the Duma Optimist part. But it's mostly around food sovereignty and where we're going with our food, how we're going to eat, over the next 20 years, or what we're going to do about it.
Sounds great. All right, man. Until next time. It was nice to meet you.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.
All right.